nursing technician, or even a salesperson, what do you need to know about humor in the sales process, and why does it matter? This is a fantastic question. I'm Scott Sylvan Bell, coming to you live for HVAC Technician Sales Secrets on a perfect day to talk about sales and business, and a fantastic day to talk about you. Today, we are going to talk about humor. Now, I love a good joke. I love a good story, right? And at one point, I was going to do stand-up comedy. So, like, I've done improv, I've done stand-up, but I want to give you a couple of warnings, okay? One, humor does not always translate. So what I think is hilarious may be offensive completely to somebody else, or somebody will be like, Scott, I love that too. And the reason I want you to be aware of this is there's going to be a time where you meet with a client, where you meet with a potential client, and you start having some ha-ha fun. Ha-ha fun is where you say something funny, and then they say something funny. And then you say something funny, and then they say something funny, right? And if you ever want an example of this, you can watch any of the podcasts where there's two comedians. Sometimes this will happen with Joe Rogan. This happens a lot with Two Bears, One Cave, with Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer, right? What happens is it becomes a competition. And like, Scott, what does that got to do with me? I'm going to say everything, because here's what's going to happen. Is there is going to be a point where you're having some ha-ha fun with a client, and the fun escalates. And it becomes a match. It becomes I'm going to tell a joke, then you're going to tell a joke, and then I'm going to be witty, and then you're going to be witty. But in that escalation, right, in that climb up, however you want to say it, you have to get a little bit more dangerous to get a little bit more laughs. And it's not like it has to be, right, 100%. There's a high probability, I should say. There's a high probability that you are going to escalate what you think is funny, and that other person's going to escalate what they think is funny. And then there's going to be a point where you and them don't match. And this right here is why you should join my email publication. Just go to this URL right above my head, type it in, drop in your name, your email address. It's an email publication. I'll give you the goods. You'll love it, right? I send out 2 emails a week. 2 emails a week. It's not that big. So the reason I bring this up is I was watching a sales presentation the other day, and I see this happen. I see where salesperson escalates, buyer escalates, salesperson escalates, buyer escalates. Salesperson says something that buyer doesn't like, and that buyer no longer became a buyer. They became a, I'm out of here because you hurt my feelings, okay? Now, here's the other thing. Whenever you're talking about humor, there's always somebody at the expense. There's always an out group. There's always a group that doesn't match up, and that's what makes it funny, because it's a distinction. It's a difference between two items, right? You look like people like Jerry Seinfeld. He doesn't usually talk about people. He talks about events. And so for you, you have to know your audience. You have to know the people that you're talking to. And I'm going to make a couple of recommendations. That you have a base routine of jokes or content that's funny, that you've tested, and that you know how to time. And so if you're out there in sales, you need about 5 or 10 of these. Start with 1 or 2. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for harmless, funny things that you could say that are not going to get you in trouble. And they don't have to be hilarious. They just got to be slightly funny, right? Like, I'll say, hey, look, I make 4 mistakes a day. On number 4, I go home and take a nap. And it's a little bit of humor, and it's not edgy, okay? So with that being said, there's a couple of areas that I would probably stay away from. And here's what you need to know. Even if we are the same political stripe, even if we're the same religion, there's things that people are like, it's a button that you push, and you got to be careful because they get upset. So a couple of challenges here. 1, start looking for little quick lines that you could use that are funny. It might be self-deprecating humor, but you can go too far. I see salespeople do this a lot, where they start making fun of themselves and they start losing stature in the mind of the buyer, because it's like, why can't you just say you're good at what you do? I get it. 1 or 2 little quips here, ha ha ha, funny. but 20 or 30, not so good. So you hear me say, hey, come up with one or two funny jokes to begin with, like little lines, and you're like, I'll come up with 100. No, come up with one or two. And then when you have two, come up with 3 or 4. And then when you have 3 or 4, come up with 5 or 6. But start peppering them into your sales process and into your conversation. And here is one last tip that I'm going to give you. Some people in the buying process want to have all the control. And control can happen in a lot of different ways. They can tell you what they want to have done. They can tell you that they've got the money. And sometimes it comes down to the buyer wants to be funny. And if you try to escalate on jokes, they get frustrated and they shut down. Nobody teaches you that. You got to know that, because nobody ever tells you. You can lose deals because the buyer wants to be funny. It's their moment. It's their time. And now you're stealing the spotlight. It's not just that they wanted to buy. They wanted to be funny. You got one of 3 things to do from here. Just one of 3. Find the subscribe button, click on it, and every time I send out a video, you'll get an update. 2, hit follow. 3, you know what you got to do. Share this video with a friend. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.